All right, well, let's get going. Welcome everyone to this month's Community of Practice. I'm Robin Lewis. I think I've met most of you, but I did hear that there are a few new people on the call. So I am the project manager for the DRS side of the project. Jim is my partner in crime over at UIUC. And we're hosting these community of practices so that we can make SWTC, Illinois the best SWTC project in the nation. How about that? All right, so next slide, please. All right, and as a quick reminder, there are some certain aspects that make a community of practice a community of practice. So there's a critical function, there's a reason behind having a community of practice. We want to first educate folks, then support you, answer your questions on the educational topic that we're providing for today. We want to encourage you to share with us your successes and the things that are going well. So that's when we'll give you an opportunity for a customer and agency highlight. Then we want to cultivate. We want you all to share your ideas with one another. Community of practice is a way for us to shake things up a little bit and gives us an opportunity to do things in a better, more efficient way. And that's what we're trying to do as a state, is to improve the employment landscape for people with significant disabilities. Then we want you to go back and integrate what you've learned, apply something you learned today in your daily practice. Next slide. Next slide, please. All right, so we're going to dive right in and provide some highlights from the month of March. We've been very, very busy as a team. So we recently, last week, we had an executive staff summit where we invited the executive leadership from each of our 6 partnering agencies to come and learn with us. And we talked about DRS services, DDD services. ICDD came and talked about dignity and pay. We had Sandy Smith that came and talked to us about benefits planning. We had Barb Moore, who used to be with the with ISB, State Board of Education, but is now kind of, I think, came to the U of I team, if I tracked that properly. And she talked to us about organizational change. We had a gentleman, Jim Meyer from the Illinois Center for Transition and Work, came and talked about transition services. So I really feel like the event was well received and there was a lot to be learned, and a lot was learned with our executive staff. So that was really exciting. Also this month, our CRSs, or your liaisons, they have been engaged in the benefits planning training. And as soon as they're finished with this next level of training, they will be, I believe they'll be CWIC certified. So they'll be official benefits planners. So that's exciting. For those of you who missed out on the first round of ACRE training, we'll have a next round of ACRE training coming up, I believe, in a week or two, some maybe 2 weeks. So if you missed out and you didn't register, then too bad, so sad. You have to wait until the next one because the class is closed. Several of our agencies have had outreach events, which is exciting. April 8th, that's coming up quickly. Okay, I'm gonna clear my calendar. We've had leadership trainings, Some of our agencies have provided some leadership trainings. VCU came and did site visits at each of our sites. And we had an activity log launch for our employment specialists to log their activities, daily activities. And we finally got those release of information and customer participation forms out and signed. So just a reminder that those are due on the 15th of April. I've already received some of yours. While we're here and on this topic, I am going to just offer to everyone just a bit of clarity. So we've had a couple of questions regarding those forms. One question was, may the agencies facilitate or help with getting those forms signed? Can they help the counselors get those forms signed? Absolutely. Absolutely. They should go through the counselors so that the counselors can keep them for their records and then, shift it on to me. The counselors, I would expect you to consolidate all of those releases and attach the customer case file number and put them all together in an email and send it to me. Additionally, there was another question about the expiration date for the release of information form. So we're going to make that the end of the grant period, which will be, I should have looked that date up. I will send out a follow-up email with the exact date, but it'll be, I think, September 30th of 2027, I think is when that will be. So we're just wanting them to grant us access to their case file and for us to be able to review it through the life of the grant project. So there's no need for us to get that re-signed every single year. We can just do one and done. Now, if you have already received signatures and sent those to me, I am not going to ask you to get those refilled out to correct that date. Just simply next year, when it comes time to update forms, you can update it and then send it to me then. Not a problem. Okay, next slide, please. Spacebar or your mouse thing. There you go. Good. All right. Awesome. So, Switzy, by the numbers, y'all are doing fantastic. Can I just say, like, this was so much smaller last month whenever we went through all of this. So we have 48 engaged participants right now. There may be more because I just updated this like a week or two ago, almost 2 weeks ago now. So numbers could be a little bit different as of today. You all are moving very quickly. Oh, AID just got one placement. Awesome. Way to go, AID. So we have 48 participants engaged. 37 of those are DRS customers, and we have 9 who are competitively working, which is fantastic. So we love to hear that. Okay, next slide. It wouldn't be a community of practice without a nice quote. So this is the one for this month is that systems don't change just because we identify them. They change because we disrupt them. So that is our goal. We want to disrupt things, to mess up the status quo, because this is how we get better. We get better by challenging ourselves, challenging the process. So that's really the intent of SWTC, is to challenge our process, disrupt the system so that we can make it better and stronger. So that's your challenge, your homework when you leave here today, is to see what you can do to disrupt this system so that we can make it better. All right. So with that said, I'm going to pass it over to Vicki Brooke from VCU. And she's going to talk about developing the job seeker profile and the effective use of situational assessments. This is our learning piece for today. Then we'll make sure you collect your questions as she's going along. We'll have about 15 minutes or so for a discussion. And we do really want y'all to participate, because that is the only way any of you are going to get anything out of this community of practice, is if we have active participation. So please don't be afraid. All of the questions are good questions. And I guarantee if you have a question, someone else in this room also has the same question. So we want to get those answered. And if you don't have any questions, if you have a tip, something that you guys do well, then please share those with us, because that's how we learn. We want to learn from each other. All right, Vicki, take it away.
Thanks, Robin. Boy, this is really dark in here. I may have better do something about that. So I see on the list that some folks who are participating have had the online course, the ACRE course. Others have not. You've had some additional training in the job seeker profile. So I'm going to go through the PowerPoints. I want you to feel really free to use the message board. They're going to stop me and let me see the message, and we can review it. So as we go, we can wait till the end to do some questions, but we can also do it during the course of this. So please feel free to just to speak out. I'm going to shut this shutter. Oh yeah, that's much better. So let's just begin with where does the job seeker profile fit in the whole process of supported employment? And it's really the very beginning. So we'll talk a little bit more about this, but all the agencies have an intake process. And it appears to us that a lot of the intake kind of starts spilling over into the job seeker profile. But it's the very first thing that we're going to stay focused on. And we'll talk about how to make this very person-centered and really driven by the individual that we're serving. This job seeker profile is so important because it is going to drive the job development process. It's going to help kind of direct the career path that we're going to go on. From that, once there's been an offer for a job, then job site training and support begins. And then once the individual is stabilized on the job, then we move into long-term supports or follow along. And you'll see there it has a lot of things that are involved with each one of those processes. Key to here, we won't go through all this, but key to each one of these phases is the employment specialist. So when I started being an employment specialist was before, actually before supported employment was in federal law, and we were called trainer advocates, which I still kind of really like. It just didn't catch on. But the job coach is really going to be the person providing the support to the individual. And that support's going to be more or less intensive depending on what the individual's actual needs are. So if it's job development, if the individual's really driving that process and they haven't had a lot of experiences, or maybe they haven't had any work experience, the experience has really been from the workshop, the employment specialist is going to provide a lot of support. They'll spend a lot of time in the community, so they'll be able to really kind of direct that job search. Next. So the job seeker profile, we want to begin building that. So the critical first step is really kind of, we're going to learn about the individual. What are their interests, their strengths, their abilities? Well, how do you get that information? I'm certainly not going to sit down with somebody if I'm interviewing Vicki Brooke. What are your interests, strengths, and abilities? I think it'd be a short conversation. I don't really feel comfortable talking about that. But so we're going to do interviews. We're going to interview the individual. We're going to interview their family members. Maybe there's somebody that they're really close with at their church. We're going to interview that person. Maybe it's mom and dad. Maybe it's a sister who's away at college. Maybe we're going to Zoom with that individual, or wait till she's home from school on the weekends. And we're going to spend time with them to kind of really get some information about the individual. That would be really rich information, not just checking the box, but really getting to know that person. And we're going to do two things. We're going to do observations in the community. If we're developing the discovery process, we're going to be out in the community, experiencing where they like to go, activities that they like to engage in. And another tip would be to doing situational assessments. I don't know if folks here, I'd be curious to know if anybody has done situational assessments and they found those useful. If you could just type that into the message board, I'd love to see that. Because we found with our project that the individuals who really benefited from situational assessments were those individuals who had a very limited work experience. You really weren't sure what their interests or strengths were. You really weren't sure about their learning styles, and you needed more information. Okay. So again, I want to go back to just talking about this is very much a person-centered process. You can't do employment to an individual. I guess that makes sense. If you try to really encourage somebody to take a job, even if they don't want it, they're going to fall out of employment. It won't work. You may get them, they may take the job and they may experience it for a little while, but there won't be any long-term employment there. They'll fall out. So I want to spend time with the individual. What's their dream for a job? If they could have anything, what does it look like? And on the flip side of that, what's the nightmare? What is the kind of job that they just totally don't want? You know, I don't want to be sitting at a desk in an office, or I don't want to work outside. That would be terrible for me. Really, who is this person? What are they good at? And so I would be asking these questions of the person. I would be asking those questions of the family members. If it's a teacher or a teacher's aide, I would be trying to get that information from all those individuals. What does the person really need to move forward with employment? So for example, it could be as simple as our folks the majority of our folks will not be driving cars. So they don't have a driver's license, but they could go to the Department of Motor Vehicles and get a non-driver's license. You know, that would be a personal ID. Do they have their Social Security card ready? These are all things that an employer may ask for at the time of hire. Oh, I got somebody saying, yes, situational assessments are super helpful in revealing strengths and interests. And CTF has used situational assessments using our 14C jobs and the community of honey baked hams. Plus, honey baked hams are excellent. Helped with identifying the barriers that could not communicate by others on the super. So that's exactly what you want out of the situational assessment, is to be identifying those barriers that really weren't discussed by anybody. They'll come out, they will come out in a situational assessment. So that's great that you're using that. Thanks, Teresa. So again, back to what does the person need? So getting those things in order now. Did you move that? Could you go back? What's this? Here we are. Then I want to move towards what's the plan of action? And then from that plan of action, like who's going to be involved? Are we going to be doing that over the next 3 months, doing working on the job seeker profile? How many hours per month are we going to stay focused on it? How many contacts will the individual have with the employment specialist each week? Are we letting the family know that it takes time to find a job? So getting people prepared that they're not expecting that the individual is going to have a job next week, or that they're going to be with the individual every single day for the next 3 months. So setting up that plan and that kind of that schedule. And then from that, really developing a more specific or a map of how we're going to kind of proceed moving forward. And then finally, we're going to put that all together and really have the individual sort of history that's going to help guide us as we move forward in this process. But the person driving that's going to be the individual. Next. So this may be, when we're doing the job seeker intake, that may be the first time that you meet with the individual. If the individual is somebody from the workshop, you of course will know them, but you will still do the intake process. If they're coming from the school, may have never met the individual before. So really kind of looking at that intake form and really deciding how much information you need to get during that first meeting. Those forms, I know the forms that, I don't know, Nikki, how many pages is the intake form at AID? It is long. It is a long form. So deciding how much you're going to get, 20 pages long. Okay. So just really deciding or highlighting on that form what you're going to get during the first meeting. A lot of that information is just personal data information. You just want to confirm that. So deciding where that meeting is going to take place. It should be very conversational. It's not like you're sitting there with your pen and paper saying, filling out the form. Rather, we're just going to sit and talk. Who do you want to have in that meeting? Maybe the initial meeting is just going to be mom. But as future meetings go out that we want to plan for that, we'll have others included. And while we're really focused about work, we also want to know what their recreational interests are. What do they do when they're just hanging out? What are their activities? What are they interested in? From that, we're really going to find out more about their strengths. We'll find out, like, if they like to ride horses. We know they're kind of an outdoor person. We'll find out more about the individual if we can kind of move from just that very specific work kind of interest to a fuller picture of the individual. And the best way to do that is really seeing the individual in the context of their own community. So go to outings that they may go to with their family. Go to if it's a craft situation or a craft night that they go to, maybe they like to do stained glass, and go to a stained glass a stained glass class with them, and really experience that with them. You'll find new people that they are associated with. Or maybe on the way to the stained glass class, you're going to find out, oh, they always stop at the this coffee shop for coffee. Go in there, spend some time at that coffee shop. You'll learn about new people that they have that you want to meet. So really kind of doing those experiences in the community with them can be very rich. Tara just posted, I used situational assessment last week, and it was very helpful in identifying the needs and strengths of the individual. I'll tell you, that's why I really found it very helpful as an employment specialist myself. You'll have less surprises down the road if you can kind of get as much information during this process, the job seeker profile process. So as I think oftentimes we skip over a lot of this and we want to hurry up and get to the job placement. You're really going to miss out on some really rich information. As much as you want to get to the job and help somebody secure employment, you're going to make a better job match if you could really concentrate on the job seeker profile and get a really clear picture of that person. Okay, and then identify their contributions. What do they do? Maybe they volunteer at the food bank, and that's something that's a big interest to them. Maybe they do a special thing. Maybe they run the nursery class at church. So that gives you an idea that really they do like children, or they could be a potential career path. So really identifying that. I would say that during this process, you may initially do a meeting at the school if they're a student, or at the workshop for initial meeting, but I would really advocate as you move through and really gather this information, that you move out to a neutral place to do the intake and building that job seeker profile. I would move to maybe a library, where they often have those quiet rooms, or the individual's home, just someplace that you agree upon that would not be a place that is typically where they're meeting. So I'm going to ask the individual, who do they want present during the intake? That's up to them to kind of drive that process. What are some questions that you might ask in order to kind of get that process moving? Anybody who's gone through this? How do you get to the question or get to the answer about what motivates an individual? Anybody have any ideas in that area that they might want to share? Oh yeah, that would be helpful. Robin's making us laugh. It's kind of a difficult thing for people to answer, like what motivates you. But trying to get that will be really helpful down the road. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Nick Boyle with Access Living. I just want to say, I'm not I don't work for a provider agency, but I do have a brother with autism. One of the things I found when just trying to engage his interests, sometimes when I've found when asking general questions like, what do you like to do or what job would you want? That's the kind of or if I asked him what motivates you, I think he'd be stuck there and he wouldn't know how to answer it. But if I ask him concrete questions like, what are 3 things you did this past weekend? He can list that off once he knows the start and the end. I need to have 3 things. And there was a start and end from Friday to Sunday. What are 3 things I did? So I just share that as an approach I've done with my brother and his friends, to get more of those qualitative questions out.
That's really great. I think that's very effective. Thanks for sharing that. Next slide. Somebody else have something?
Yeah, this is Arthur. I wanted to speak on motivation, if we have time.
Yeah, we sure.
Well, I find the topic very interesting. I think one thing that could help is as you said, is focusing on their dream. And however radical and unrealistic that it sounds, just finding the most realistic option that is available to them, right? So, we might not be able to help them become, a pilot overnight, but if we could help them, perform record keeping at the office of an airport, you never know. That might be, so I really do agree and see that, focusing on the individual can help really motivate the individual as well.
I love that. I think you're totally and absolutely right. I think too often we cut off that communication when somebody says, I want to be a pilot. I love airports. And it's just like, well, you're never going to fly an airplane. Somebody would say that to me. You can barely drive a car, lady. You should not be in an airplane. But if you dig a little deeper, what is it about the airport? Hang out at the airport. Maybe conduct a situational assessment at the airport. Look at all the different types of jobs at the airport. Or is it that they want to wear a pilot's uniform or our uniform? So trying to dig a little deeper is really actually, it's really the creative part of our job. So that part is that's always been super exciting to me. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. I want to kind of in that vein, I want to spend just a little bit of time about informed choice. Like, what is informed choice and how can we ensure that people with disabilities are able to make informed choice? Does anybody want to comment on that? So if I say to somebody, at the workshop that you have your choice between this job or that job, is that informed choice? Or
Hi,
if
this
somebody
is
from the, go ahead.
this is Brandy from Kreider. I was just thinking education and experience would lead to a better informed choice.
Oh my gosh, those are the two words. Educational and experience.
There's three
somebody doesn't-
words that we were taught, but I can't remember what the third one is.
But if somebody doesn't have any experience in the area, then how can they make an informed choice? So really, that's part of getting out in the community and having those experiences. And that whole thing of like that forced choice between this job or that job, is not choice. So Nikki says only if they fully understand it or they have tried working in that area. So I think that's what we were saying here, being exposed to different experiences, then they would have information in order to make a choice. But if they haven't had the experience, if they've only ever known working, participating in the workshop, and they say they don't want to go out in the community to have a job, but if they haven't had that experience, how could that be informed choice? Next slide. So what people don't want is, I believe, is just as important what they do want, and really paying attention to what they don't like. And we said this, who said it? I'm not sure who's, but we just heard they need to have familiarity with the choice options and what are those subsequent activities. Once we're sure and we're comfortable with that, then we present the options, then we'll feel more comfortable that it is informed choice. And again, sometimes people want something that's not possible. He's not going to be a pilot. Okay. What can we learn from that? What do we want to find out about the pilot? What is it about being a pilot? Someone wants to be a policeman. No, you probably won't ever be a policeman, but there are a ton of jobs at the police station. What is it about the police work that you're interested in? And for you to really kind of treat that information very respectfully and really kind of dig deep and try to get some additional information will really, will oftentimes just unearth all kinds of information for you that will help you kind of direct the career path. Any other thoughts on informed choice? I think it's a really important component of the Switchy projects and making sure that we are giving people the experiences to make the informed choice, giving them familiarity with those activities so they can so when they know that they want to go in a certain direction, that you feel comfortable that they're making a decision that is based upon those experiences.
Hi, this
So
is
an
Teresa
area,
from,
go ahead.
Hi.
Yeah.
this is Teresa from CTF. I think one of the things that we also do in using, when we use the community, are our career explorations. Taking individuals into the community to kind of see places and the same type of employment, but in different venues. So
Can you give me an example?
yes, so one of the things that we have a young man that is really good with his custodial skills. And so we've been taking him into the community to different places so he can see exactly what custodial skills look like in other places. So he worked in a museum. And so we took him to a what is that thing called? The outside, the rest, the car, where you rest the car at, a car rest, where they clean the bathrooms, where you stop on the expressway and they have these car rests where you go in and they have vending machines and they have garbage cans to empty. Some of the similar
Rest stop.
rest stop, that's it, thank you, Jim. So that he can see that he can do those skills in a variety of places. He likes being outside. He has limited visions of different venues. So we've gone over to the movie theater to see what it looks like over there with, you know, the sweeping throughout the movie theater, getting up the popcorn and things like that. Plus maybe even asking about the customer service where people would ask him questions because he's cleaning. We've taken him to a mall so he could see how big a place would be and what he could be responsible for, just because he enjoys doing janitorial custodial work. So we opened up his eyes and was like, okay, we took him in Sam's Club, had never been there before. And what they do in Sam's Club, there are some additional stuff. And he was so overwhelmed with, wow, look at the store, that he was like, I can maybe do some stocking. So just to kind of open him up and get him to see there's a variety out here. So before you make a decision of this is what I want, this is what you know, we can widen this. Even window washing or is a version of custodial. There's dishwashing and busing. So we've taken one part and we've tried to open up a multitude of positions that he may be able to do with that limited experience.
I love that. Ooh, well, something's happening there. So, and that's what you would do during the discovery process. You would identify areas of interest. So one of his areas of interest is custodial work. And then you're looking at all the different types of jobs or employment paths that you could have with custodial working. Apparently, you also looked at some other areas before you centered on just custodial work.
Correct.
So you would do the same thing with, like, for customized employment, you probably would identify 3 different areas of interest for that individual, and then maybe 10 job choices under that area, and then evaluate each one of those. And really the evaluation is really the exposure to it.
Okay.
That's great. That's really great work.
Thank you.
So I hesitate to call these areas of assessment because we all know assessment. What does that mean? You know, you're in or you're out. You got a good grade, you got a bad grade. But what we're doing is getting a snapshot of the individual. So I'm not going to change their learning style. I want to get a snapshot of their learning style. I want to get a snapshot of what their productivity is. Is this person like really a fast moving person with kind of low quality, or is this a very methodical, slow moving person? I want to identify that. What's the individual's interest? How do they communicate? Are they very resident to communicate? Are they very shy? Are they very withdrawn? I want all that in kind of information. Do they like to interact with people? Are they not good socially? What are their other work traits? Will they initiate? Are they motivated to do that? And what is their physical ability? What are some things I really just need to know about their physical strength, maybe their endurance? And let me just say this about endurance, but if somebody's been sitting in the workshop for years or sitting in a classroom for years, and all of a sudden you're going to think about employment and the person may be standing, that's going to take a lot of endurance and strength. So I wouldn't eliminate jobs because of that. I would just know going into it that endurance will build over time. And there's things that you can do in order to build that endurance, but making sure that you have a picture of what that is initially and know that that's, you know, this is where we're at now, but this is the end point where we want to be. And then looking at appearance. So those are the areas I want to kind of capture. Next. And I say, the word assessment scares me because people oftentimes eliminate individuals and not even let them get to employment because they don't have a certain set of skills. They'll say, the traditional way of looking at employment is that they cannot fill that job description, so they can't have a job. And we really kind of look at what the individual can't do as opposed to what could they do if there was a good match. And with the right supports, what could they do? So all this is going to be based upon the supports that the employment specialist is providing, maybe some natural supports on the job site. So we want to look towards employment and kind of get rid of some of those traditional attitudes or ideas. Next. And just to pay attention of our own language, sometimes we say, typically for us, these are things that we like. We say that they fixate on it. Vicky makes friends. John has attention-seeking behavior. Vicky takes a break. He's off task. I'm highly focused. He perseverates. So just looking at our language and how we describe the individuals in our reports, just pay attention to that is all I would say. And I would probably be considered non-compliant, so maybe I'm sensitive. So we want to get rid of that deficiency point of view. The purpose of supported employment is to make the best match between what the employee's strengths, support needs, and preferences are, and the strengths, needs, and dynamics of the potential employment site. So this is all about the match. Again, so if we don't have a good picture of what that job entails, we're not going to be able to have a good match. We don't know what the job entails and what the consumer's strengths and what they bring to that job. We're not going to be able to make a good match. So we need to really spend time on this part of this phase of supported employment. I'm not going to do an activity here, but I will ask the question of those individuals who have done situational assessments. What would you say to me if I said, well, I'm not going to go into Target and do the situational assessment there. I'm going to do the assessment right here in the workshop, and I'm going to set up a janitorial task that they could do right here in the workshop and not do it at Target. What would you say?
I would say that's not a good idea.
Okay, why? Why isn't that a good idea?
It's not authentic. Being at Target, you're in the environment with the public coming in and all of the different variables, where if you set it up within the workshop, that's kind of in isolation, and you're kind of in a way controlling those factors that you're, going to experience out in the public.
Absolutely. We have, that's exactly it. I mean, we can't simulate a real environment. Somebody said, Robinson, the transfer of knowledge, the exposure to a new experience and new people. You can't simulate that. And going to multiple sites, it's like having additional information. So I might do it at a Target, and I might go to, if somebody really wanted retail, I might go to a Target. I might do another one at Walmart, and I may do a third one at CVS. 3 totally different environments, maybe 3 different times a day. And I want to see if there's a change in how they respond to those tasks. Again, that's going to give me information about choice. If they steer away from a particular job task and they haven't said it to you, they're telling you they don't like it. I know I had an experience. We had a student from the school that we took to an assessment site, and he was doing pot scrubbing, and he was ready to go. He was ready to explode. He was going to throw the pots. So rather than ending the situational assessment, we moved him to like a dish machine room, which is just this huge, it's on a government center. It's just this huge dish machine in this whole room by itself. He loved it. He loved the steam. He loved grabbing the hot dishes. I mean, he was within a short period of time, he was just moving from task to task to task without any prompting. So what did that tell me? I hate pot scrubbing and you can't make me do it, but I love this job. So if I ended it with the pot scrubbing because I was afraid there was going to be some explosive behavior, we would have walked away and say, this person isn't ready for employment. I mean, most of us would walk away and say it wasn't ready for employment. He has too many acting out behaviors. We need to really focus on those behaviors. And we learned so much more by having him just continue the assessment in another area. Okay. So has anybody had any difficulty in setting up a situational assessment when talking to an employer? Is it a weird thing to talk to an employer about setting up a situational assessment?
So Tara, this is Jim. So Tara, if I can call you out, when you set yours up, how did that go? I mean, did you feel kind of weird doing it? Was it comfortable, or it helps out just a little bit about how you felt and what that was like?
No, it wasn't weird. We actually just went to the business of his choice and just got really lucky. The manager came out and they just began a conversation, and she asked him all kinds of questions and took him to a part of the store that he's familiar with. And she asked him, what he is, familiar with doing in this particular aisle. And he showed her step by step what he knows how to do. We got really lucky that day. So it was just by chance. We just went into this business, asked for a manager, and it just took off.
I would say, I mean, you felt like you were lucky, but that's really been people's experiences. I mean, going to the employer, you're not looking for a job. You have this employment program, and you just want to test out his interests and skills in this particular area. So can we come in for 3 hours next week on a day that's good for you? And so if the person's looking for a part-time job, I would think I would want the situational assessment to be just maybe 3 hours. If the person's looking for a full-time job, I would like to assess them for a whole day. You as the employment specialist would go in and you would do an analysis of what their tasks actually are. So you yourself would learn the task, and then you would be supporting the individual as they completed the work task in that environment. So in the slide before, you saw the employment specialist with the one before that with the guy. He was putting together Nordic equipment. It's not important. That's okay. But the employment specialist had to go in and really learn that task before we could set up the situational assessment. The employer may ask who's covered for the insurance. The clients who are Department of Rehab Services would be covered through their insurance, and the employment specialists would be covered by their employers. Go back one, please. I can just hear you now. You're going to say, I'm never going to work with Vicki Brooke again. So you want to contact the business. You were good. Next slide. You want to contact the business. You want to analyze the tasks that you want to do. You want to schedule the assessment, and then you want to record the observations. And we're going to, when we end, I'm going to have a couple examples of how you record the information, what you want to record. It'll just be one example of how to do this. But I think it's important now that we start talking about our building that relationship with the rehab counselors, because it's really the rehab counselor and the employment specialists that are doing this together. So right now with Switchy, we're not having to worry about submitting anything for VR billing, but down the road we will. We're going to have to look at that relationship and how that is requested and what kind of information they want that they consider is a good report. So we'll talk about that more going down the road, but it's going to be important to record these assessments so you can document them. Okay. Here's the situational of James. So what we observed, the assessment is a respiratory therapy department at a healthcare system. His task was to collect soil oximeters in the biohazard room. He was to clean them, sanitize them, and then clear all the patient trends on the machine. So when the next person picked it up, it'd be ready to go. So the employment specialists had to go in and learn that task, develop the task analysis, so they could be with James when he completed that situational assessment. Next. So what I found out about James was that he follows written instruction. So as I'm doing the situational assessment, I may do a quick little checklist and see how he responds to using a checklist. I know he excels in a routine. He likes the repetition. He's a perfectionist. Some of the issues that came up is that he would like a very rigid schedule. He does exhibit some observational self-stimulating behavior. But, once his hands are engaged and he's working, the rocking really slows down. But if he's in this area and so he rocks, I can tell you nobody says anything. He's doing the task and he's a perfectionist at it. That's what they want. In the end, that's what they want. Next. Here's another example. This individual had more of an extended assessment, somebody who wanted to work full-time at a department hospital. He counted, inventoried, and ordered patient supply items for various floors. What we found out about Kevin, next. He was extremely thorough. He had strong areas of task acquisition and completion. He followed directions and he was eager to please. He works below average work pace. He's impatient with time constraints, and he requires prompting to initiate new tasks. But I'm going to use that time with them to kind of develop some compensatory strategies and to apply them on the job site. Maybe he has an iPhone and I set a timer on it to see how he would respond to the timer to move to the next floor. I'm not going to, I'm not making an assessment again that he's not employable. I'm just testing out some strategies. So when and if he gets a job like this, I'll be able to apply them right away from, right from the get-go. Another question we have is, for those doing situational assessments, how long are you spending on the job site? Generally speaking, are we going, Terry? Well, go ahead, and if you're doing situational assessments, generally speaking, how long do they last? Are they lasting maybe 3 hours? Are they lasting a full day? Maybe it's for 3 days in a row, or 3 hours Monday, Wednesday, Friday. What does that look like for most of you? Now, I have seen people who are calling a situational assessment when somebody's on site doing at a business for 3 weeks. You have to really be careful because this is really just situation. This is really just assessment. They're not getting paid. It's an unpaid kind of just quick in and out kind of information. But if you're there for an extended period of time and the individual is not getting paid, the business is actually gaining from the individual. So then you have problems with labor laws.
So Vicky, this is Robin. So I guess in
Yeah.
my eyes, I wasn't necessarily thinking that you had, is 3 hours average? Like I was thinking smaller bits of time. But
Smaller bits of time.
is that
Oh.
too not long enough?
Well, it could be 3 hours, and maybe they break for a lunch, and we see them on site interacting, doing like maybe using the cafeteria for lunch, and then going back to the site where they were working. So we get to see them in different types of environments right at that site, doing different types of experiences.
Gotcha.
And that would all become part of my report. What's that? I'm sorry, I step on somebody.
Hi, this is Teresa again. So I think it depends on like where you're at during the situational. For us, when we were at Honey Baked Hams, we were there 8 hours a day for a week. And what we were able to do is we took all 8 individuals with us, and we were able to rotate different days in order for them to work in the different positions that they had there at Honey Baked Hams, so that we could see how their endurance was. Because some of the positions were a little bit more fast paced. Some were you had to be able to lift more heavily. Some used knives to cut. There were blow torches to glaze, and so we did that for a week. And fortunately, they were able to get paid for it, but we were able to really learn a lot about like the soft skills, where they're going to be on time because they took pace, and we had to be we had a travel of an hour. How they did with taking their breaks, being in a place where there was like little room to have breaks and lunch, so they had to actually take break and lunch in a van. They were given lunches, how they were receptive to the different leads that were giving them things to do within it. So that was a little bit more detailed and a little longer, but we've also done shorter because we use here in our day program to do different types of jobs and use different small industrial tools. So we may watch them maybe a couple of hours on a task to see how well they're able to manipulate their hands, or if they can stand, if they need to sit, stuff like that. Is that what that's what we
Are you saying that was in the day activity center?
So yes, here in we have a workshop, a packing and assembly workshop, and we have at least in one day 5 to 6 different jobs going. And so we know the ones that they're good at, but what we do is we take them and we try to put them on ones that they haven't done before or haven't been introduced to, and we observe them and work with them through it to see what they're able to do with minimal correction.
Okay. So I do believe that you probably got a lot of really good information. I would just say that then the next movement would to take one individual to a business and really kind of do something more intensive with a single individual. So
Okay.
I'm not saying you didn't get great information. I'm sure you did get great information, and that may then drive you to where you want to go for an individual situational assessment. But I think once our partnerships get well, we already do have great partnerships with Department of Rehab Services, but once if they're paying for that service, they're probably going to be looking for you to do a individual, a employment specialist at a business for maybe 3 hours.
Okay.
Or they're going to ask, or it's going to be at multiple sites like we talked about. So again, I'm not saying what you did is wrong. I'm sure you got great information. Even from the day activity center when you were doing, looking at there in more of an industrial setting. But then the next movement would be to go into the community and to look at that in a business.
Okay,
Thanks for sharing that.
thank you.
Are we supposed to stop now?
You can stop if
You-
you're done.
Yeah, if you're done.
I have two reports. I just want to show, do I have sharing capability?
Yes,
Can you
ma'am.
guys see that?
This is Jim. Yes, yes, we can.
Oh, I do love it when Jim says yes, ma'am to me. Yes, ma'am. So here's an example of a situational assessment billing report that before I retired from VCU, we had
I don't see it.
we have
Vicky.
our own. Yes.
I'm not able to see it.
Yeah, now we're not seeing it.
Now you're not seeing it?
No.
Why are we not seeing it, Jim?
No. We
Did
were
you see
seeing
it
the,
before?
well, we were seeing the PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh. So share screen.
Yeah.
Can you see it now?
Starting. Yep. There's
Okay.
yeah.
So here's just, this is just how we've done it. This is from how we would send a billing record to the employment specialist. So if Department of Rehab Services asked us to provide, to do situational assessment, and they're going to give us, I don't know, 15 hours of situational assessment, we would then bill off of that authorization. And here's the information we would give back. So we'd let them know where it was, who the VR counselor was, what the goal of the situational assessment was, what the duties were, that the individual was working in a daycare area. We're gonna acknowledge and write down what we saw as the individual strengths. There's some of the limitations, some of the barriers, and we're sharing this with the VR counselor who is paying for that service. Now, if we find that the daycare situation was really positive and we wanted to expand that, we may ask for additional hours so we could do another situational assessment in a totally different type of daycare situation. I want to show you what,
I have a question.
yeah.
This is Brandy from Kreider. I don't think that this is something that we can use, but could we get a copy of maybe the form so we could use some of that to document on our situational assessments?
Yes, you can.
Thank you.
I'll make sure that happens. Now let me just do this one thing. Share screen. Yes, Vicky. Well done. Okay. So here's a report that we would then, and the employment specialist is writing up what occurred in the business setting. And very detailed information that's going to really capture what went well, what did not go well. And these are just case notes. And then the bottom is just how we're keeping track of the billing record. So it's important to not only to share it with the VR counselor, but we're also, it becomes a historical record for the client. So God forbid something happens to the employment specialist and they leave their job. There's going to be a record of what occurred in the situational assessment, what worked well, what didn't work well, how many assessments they've had, what types of businesses they've been to, and what kind of information was gleaned from that. Are folks using something similar?
I am curious here at this juncture, like I am not totally familiar just because I'm new with DRS, relatively speaking. What documentation is required at each phase for billing? So I don't think we have a standard. I think we leave that to some of the agencies to provide whatever tool they use. Am I correct in that, Jim and Nalitha, those of you who are DRS historians or current people, current counselors and such that are on the call?
Yeah, I would let, I'm a little, this is Jim, I'm a little farther removed from that, but so I think I see Nathan on the call perhaps. Is there a DRS counselor on the call that could maybe lend a little bit of clarity to that? I see Louise, she would be a good resource. Not to call you out, Nathan, whoever wants to jump in. Do we need to unmute somebody manually, or maybe they're not willing?
Hi, Jim. This is Nathan. Can you
Hey,
hear me?
Nathan. Yeah, we got you.
Hey.
Nice job.
I don't want to speak for all of DRS because it could vary from office to office, or it could vary from agency to agency. But I know for like phase one, the assessment and plan, that has to be completed by the CRP in order to bill for that particular phase. For phase three, then or phase two is when the person actually finds a job. So there has to be documentation of what the job is and, you know, what the hours are going to be and the pay and so forth. And then that starts the phase three is the 5 days after they've been on the job. Then there's billing for that. And then that starts the 8-week staffings and phases beyond that. And there is like a staffing note that the CRP typically completes and submits as to identifying what activities they've been working on, how the person's doing on the job, etc.
So Nathan,
That's
this is
typically what I've
Vicki.
used.
Is it a standardized for the assessment phase? Is it a standardized form, or is the CRP provides the information to you and you accept what they give you?
There's some guidelines in the CRP manual, but there's not a standard form to the best of my knowledge. That's something that each CRP has kind of generated and come up with on their own.
Okay.
So I'll just jump in here and ask real quick, would some sort of a standardized form or tool be helpful? Remember, this is our opportunity to get better. So as a state, would it be better for us to have at least an option? Because I know that Kreider jumped in and asked if they could have a copy of that. Would it be helpful for us to kind of take a look at what everybody's submitting and then see if maybe there's something that we could create that's SWTC related for us to try?
Hi, Rob, or this,
yeah.
oh, go ahead, or sorry, this is Kathy from the workshop. I know Sharon asked us for, I think she asked our, the workshop and Kreider services for, oh gosh, I can't remember what she called it, but it was basically like what you use, you know, from your referral process, but just the whole process and what we use from day one to when people exit the program. And I guess I was thinking, oh yay, we're gonna have something that's standardized or whatever. I mean, that word, I don't know, has kind of a negative connotation because I know you know, each agency is unique and every individual is unique, but yeah, I think that would be great. What we did is we took, reached out to Alyssa and Whitney and got the forms that they'd been using in a whole packet of just all of the, from intake to exit to follow along. And we just kind of cut and pasted, what works for us. And we're still going to probably change it along the way too. But yeah, I think that would be great, because there was very little digital materials, but there was just, I think what's been had, because the workshop's been doing supported employment for a long time, and I think there have been pieces along the way, but everybody's just kind of adjusting as we go here.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And that's one thing that I feel DRS is good about, is that we don't want to be overly prescriptive with telling you exactly how it has to be, and if you don't turn it in this way, then you're not getting paid. Like, I don't think we want to be that prescriptive, but I think it is good, especially for agencies that don't have a tool already to offer something for folks to adapt to their own needs. So I will take note of that. And that's similar to the concept as we started out with maybe a standardized referral packet, because some agencies are more efficient with getting their all of their materials together at once and sending it on in one lump. And that makes the process go so much faster than those that are counselor has to continually request more information. So if we had that all up front, that would make the process a little bit more efficient. So similar here, I know that there are some requirements for reporting purposes in order to get paid that's tied to your staffing. So I would like to see what everybody is using, just so we can provide a template for those who wish to use it.
I think, Robin, this goes back to how you started this whole community of practice discussion. Was we want to turn this Switchy project into the best one in the country. So having some consistency of quality across all the projects is going to be nothing but helpful. So I think this is a great discussion.
Yeah, and I think that it also will assist agencies that are not participating in our project, let them understand more about how they can more efficiently utilize the resources available to them, and with ease, without it being an overly daunting task to figure it all out. So, all right.
We're going to want people to replicate these great projects.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah. And for those of you who were not part of the executive summit, we had what do you call it? I want to say infiltrator. Is that right? If somebody kind of butts into your meeting that doesn't belong. Well, we had someone who just kind of butted right into the meeting, which is fine. They asked first, but we said yes, because we do want other agencies that are outside of our circle of 6 to learn. They wanted to learn. We could not tell them no. So come on in and learn.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it was great.
I mean, that's flattering.
And it has turned into, going to be a good thing. We're going to end up with a webinar, that's going to be available for other agencies that might be also interested, that didn't think to infiltrate our meeting. All right, so we have about not very much time. We do need to get to our customer highlight. And I think that the rest of my slides, I'm not going to worry about them at all, because it was just kind of filler. So if we can end the meeting with talking about Chester, I think that's who we're talking about today, right, Jim? We only have about
Yes.
We only have about 10 minutes left. So if we could talk about Chester, if you have questions as we go along, put them in the chat. If we don't get to answering them, we will send out a follow-up email with some materials and answers to your questions. So I don't know who is presenting about Chester.
Yeah, this is Jim. Teresa Ross is going to present, I think, or is it Quintina? Kyle? I just want to make sure that we thank Vicki. And fantastic job, Vicki. You were wonderful. It was exactly what we were looking for. Thank you so much. Kyle, you're up.
Yeah. Appreciate you, Vicki. Really good content there. I think Quintina is going to be doing the customer profile for Chester. We just need those slides pulled up again. And Quintina, Teresa, please feel free to jump in if someone else is gonna do the presentation here.
Okay,
Once we get Chester up here.
thanks.
Here he comes. All right. Thank you very much, Aletha, getting this all put together for us. There we go. All right, CTF, I'll let you all take it over here.
So this is Chester Kemple. He recently got a job at assisted living. He's an adult male. The place that he works at is called Royal Assisted Living. But he works under Lee Gacy LLC. He makes $14 an hour. He works 4 hours a day for 4 days a week. His Doors counselors with Richard Jones, but Richard kind of transitioned back to the youth side of things. So his Doors counselor will be Sheila O'Donnell. Kyle Minke is the community research specialist. I'm the community employment specialist that he has been working with. He has a support worker with the agency he lives in, which is Satoma, and wraparound services for the CILA that he lives in, which is Suburban Access, and that's Tom Costello. And his family support is his cousin Otis that he speaks of often, and when he goes on like family visits, he visits him. And his job supporters at work is the hiring manager, Chef Lee, and then his team lead, Mrs. Flo. And he started off as milestones, but now is customized employment. I started working with Chester. His date of referral was 10/26/23. He was eligible for it on 11/17/23, and his individual personal plan was 11/17/23. And what we needed to refer him to DHS to Doors, a resume, his personal plan, his social security card, his medical card, a state ID, his psychological, and a consent to service. And he recently, he has a guardian, so we have to get her to sign it as well, and as well as the new one. And about his employment, he is a dishwasher, stocker, and dietary aide. And yes, they customize with the time. And they split like Miss Flo is his team lead, so they kind of like split the duties or with some of the other kitchen staff. Because there'll be a time where he's like washing dishes. Then when he's done with that, it can be like mopping the floor and then being a dietary aide. And the dining room holds about 80 guests. So he's watching the dishes for like 80 residents of the nursing home. And that's what he does. And then on like Saturday, he does like mostly stocking the cold and the dry goods, and there's a lot of them. So, and with this, how do we gain entry to the building to build employee relationship? Identify areas of support living. We set up the meetings, applications on the process, discuss the job needs, and customize the job duties. So like I took him to the store, he got his uniform, he has to wear like black scrubs, and I also got him kitchen gloves and everything that he needed to wash dishes and to complete his job duties. And his barriers are, he's an older employee. His transportation, he rides Pace. So sometimes Pace, you might make a phone call to have you being picked up at like 8:45. Then they might show up 30 minutes later. So that was like a barrier. So Chester wanted a job that was close to his home, and he wanted, because he has worked in the community prior at Food for Less and Alsip, and they kept giving him a different schedule. He likes consistency. And some of the barriers is the timesheet. There's no like, he started out with a card, and then now it's switched to an app called Paychex Plus. So we're still working on that, because now, like, after we got the system all color coded on the paper, and they just changed it, so we're working on that to help him log in and to keep track of his schedule. So just like creating pictures, taking pictures of the app, within the phone, and color coding that as well. So what's learned during the employment process, the different steps of the employment process, ensuring travel funds, making sure he has pays vouchers, and making sure he knows where to purchase pays vouchers, because after the initial book from Doors, they don't have any more. They have to purchase them themselves. Learning the daily duties for the kitchen area, dining, the trash, like the disposal system. Had to complete a food handler certification to learn specific temperatures of the water and food storage arrangements. And what will you do differently with the next customer? During discovery, look into more time management skills in depth. And to ensure the customer and employer remain satisfied for the employment situation. Continues to provide job coaching, create new task analysis for additional responsibilities, and verbal praise often. And weekly communication with the employer. And messages from Chester. So I asked Chester, I said, what do you like best about your job? He says, it keeps him busy and he's meeting new friends. And they also praise him like the new friends, whether it's the staff at the nursing home or some of the residents that live there. I was talking to one resident yesterday, and he was like, Chester's doing a good job. So they like him, everybody, the staff, and then the residents as well. And he says his jobs make him feel happy and it makes him feel useful. I said, Chester, what you gonna do with your first paycheck? And he was like, he's gonna open a savings account and pay his phone bill, get haircuts, and pay for his Pace tickets.
What a responsible guy. Way to go, Chester.
Yeah, we love it. Really nice work, CTF. Quintina, I know you have been side by side with Chester a lot and on site with him, and helping him with his timesheets and navigating that app. So it's really awesome to see that he's been successful. Can you talk a little bit about how you made the connection with Lee Gacy, and more about Mr. Lee and why you think he decided to hire Chester, how that sort of connection occurred?
So I actually found the job on Indeed. So I had applied for several clients. So we went for the interview, and so at first the schedule was like kind of early. So Chester it was like the original schedule was like 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. So I know like Pace only runs like at a certain time, and then so he would have to get up at like 4 in the morning, because I think they started like 4:30 pickup. So Chester was kind of like, no thanks to the hours and everything like that. So was able to get that changed. But initially, so we went for the interview, and the guy just kind of liked Chester. He showed us around, showed us what to do and how everything works. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe he's not gonna hire them. So let me just try to at least establish a business business connection and say that we have, other individuals as well. And so like Chester, he's just Chester. He's like laughing, talking and being friendly and say, oh, I like this place. And so I was like, well, we have, other, because when the time, and he's, no, I like Chester. And so then that's kind of how he just we can change the schedule, because that was kind of early and he just liked Chester's bubbly personality.
I love that. I think that's just great to hear. It just shows how much, a face-to-face meeting can change
Right.
everything for someone. When you scheduled that interview, was the hiring manager aware of, that you were working with AID, that Chester was an individual with a disability? Or how did that, or did you and Chester just go in together and then you started that conversation on kind of why you were, joining Chester?
Oh, so it's just, it's regular, if they ask on Indeed, like if the person has a disability, and trying to remember back, it doesn't say like on his resume or anything. It just said that he works for, CTF because he works in the warehouse. But no. And then when I got there, I told him why I was, I'm like the job coach, and kind of told him like, if you working with individuals with disabilities, there's like tax things and all that, but that really didn't matter. He just like, Chester's bubbly personality, and he was like, he's willing to give him a chance. And that's pretty much it. He didn't really ask about the disabilities, and I said, is it okay? Because I know the other client he's placed at Olive Garden, and they're kind of more strict with like people being on their premises and everything, with liability. But they're Lee Gacy LLC, they've been, real good with working with us and letting us come on. And like, long as I just kind of pop in the office and say, hey, I'm here. And, kind of like trying to like fit in too. So like when he first started, I like wore all black as well. I didn't want to go in there. We're like different. So I'd be like that noticeable and everything. Cause a couple people were asking, who are you and things like that. So just like trying to fit in and kind of let Chester learn the job and give him his space, but kind of just, stand back and let him learn and then assist him if he needed it.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really great to hear. I was so happy for Chester, and you guys said that once he got the job, he was ready to clear his locker and
yes,
and be done with CTF and get on to independence. So I think that was really great that he didn't have any sort of maybe they'll occur, but any apprehensions about taking this job and taking on how many hours and stuff. I just think it's awesome. So really great work. Thank you. I'll let anyone else chime in with questions here too.
Hello?
So yeah, I know we're past time here at 3:32. So obviously if there's more questions here for Chester, let us know. I'm happy to hang out for a little bit, but I don't know. After this slide, Aletha, can we see what's next?
Kyle, this is Sharon. If I could just jump in, I thought it was great what she said about how when she was supporting Chester's, that she dressed, like he needed to, so that she kind of blended in. She didn't make him stand out by her presence, that she kind of, I thought that was a really great approach to, like I said, not have him stand out, that he was having someone there supporting him, but that she was kind of blending in as if she also was another worker. And I think that's a wonderful thing that she did for him. So just my 2 cents.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I agree. We've seen some other pictures of Chester, and it seems like everyone that works alongside him has been very helpful as well. He's got a lot of natural supports on the job site, which is really great. So just awesome.
We probably don't have time for agency highlights today, so we'll just kind of skip through that. But if anybody wants to share a highlight, just do a message to the entire, group invitation, meeting invitation. So that'll be a way for you to share your message for all of us to see. And we're not going to go to open discussion either because we're out of time. And that's the end. So thank you all for being such active participants today. That really makes this community of practice a whole lot better and more engaging. And we look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you for everyone who contributed. I appreciate it.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, folks.
Okay.